right. Hello, everyone. Welcome here to another weekly webinar at Route Consultant and focused on the waste industry. My name is Josh Gregory. I am the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. All that means for you is that as you're trying to figure out the best way to step into this industry or just learn more, myself and my team are here to help you learn about this space. And if you're already a contractor, already operating in this space, we're just here to try to help you find ways to continue to do it more efficiently and more effectively as you continue forwards in this space. Now, the way these webinars work, if you've never been here before, is we will always go through some new content, some ideas for you to think through, and we'll always at the end leave time for Q&A if you have any. But this is going to continue to be a place where you can meet, come together, ask questions, and even if you aren't here live, they'll always be posted on YouTube, so you'll never miss anything. You can always go and find it on our webpage, on the Route Consultant YouTube, and see all of our previous webinars. We do these every single week, and we're going to continue to do so. For today, if you've been here the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about the different things that you need to really set your business up properly, the things that you need to do to operate efficiently and effectively, all those types of things. But what we haven't talked as much about, and what we're going to spend time on today, is what do you do when things break? When things go wrong, what are the types of things you can expect there? What are the types of plans that you need to have in place there? And so we'll talk through all of that today. And obviously, I'm not the one who's going to give you all of that background and experience. We've brought Tommy back on, who has decades of experience in this industry. He grew up in this industry, working in his family's company and then working for some large corporations, analyzing these businesses across the country. So Tommy, I see you there. If you want to go ahead and say hi, then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hey, everyone.
Perfect. All right. So Tommy, I kind of teed it up. I mentioned it, talked about it. We're talking about when things break. So we'll talk through a couple scenarios here, and let's just start with the first one. So, you're ready for the workday. You wake up in the morning and you find that one of your drivers has called out. Maybe they're sick. Maybe it's not a good reason, whatever it is. What's kind of the thought process? What do you do in those types of situations?
Yeah, so I want to start even before we get into these questions to say you have to think through that before that situation occurs.
Yeah.
And so you really need to have a contingency plan in this scenario and other things that we're going to talk about. So, the first thing I do is okay, what's my contingency plan? What are the 2-3 steps I put in place? First, typically I try to do 3 things as it relates to being able to handle those situations. The first is you will need somebody who knows the business, who is capable of doing a little bit of everything. Okay. Typically that's a supervisor, ops manager, whatever you call them. So that is your first scenario to say, if you're the one that became aware, hey, here's the step, here's the process, and get in touch with them and say, hey, I know whatever you had planned today, it is now different. Here's your plan for the day. Come in and do this. And so that's the easy one. But outside of that, I really tried to work on setting up a 4-day work week because the waste routes are, set days. Residential's 5 days a week. The others, are typically about 6 days a week. If you can schedule your routes roughly 10 hours a day, which is pretty normal because you have disposal site time restraints, and you set them up on 10 hours a day and you work them on 4-day work weeks, then you have that buffer outside of your supervisor or manager that is good to call for somebody to be able to, jump in. Because if you're only working them 4 days a week, it is very likely they're going to take that extra day, get that extra pay for a day. And so really looking through that and how to set that up works extremely well. And then the third is I look for part-time or retired people that are there as somebody that can step in. A whole lot of times in this industry, it could be a firefighter, it could be a retired over the road driver. that, wants to, would like to do something. He's there and being able to do that. So, you need to look through those and set up your company where you have those contingencies in that situation right off the bat.
Yeah, yeah, and I like those kind of multi-layered approach, because inevitably, if you've only got one backup plan, that backup plan will fail on the day you need it. Now I do want to take a quick step back on that first one. So that supervisor role, we haven't talked as much about that type of role for the waste industry. Is there, is that something any operator should have, or is that something where you need to get to a certain size to kind of justify bringing on somebody like that?
Well, I would say, really once you start getting 3, 4 routes, and again, that's still small in the waste industry. Uh, you will need somebody of that sort, if for nothing else, as a part of your contingency planning for a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And outside of supervising, what are the types of things that you think, you said wear a bunch of hats, able to do a lot of things. What are the other types of things that you've seen that role kind of fill in as a need for?
Well, I mean, one thing is just checking up on the routes throughout the day. This is not an industry that has scanners, and you can't,
Yeah.
is where are you at in the route process to make sure things aren't falling behind, things aren't getting worse. So it is the little things that just come up throughout the day that somebody needs to go out and take care of, whether it is, uh, something fell off a container. I mean, meaning a door or something of that sort. Those types of things that you need to have that person able to do, at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And that makes perfect sense. I think a lot of people can kind of understand that having someone with operational know-how in a bunch of different areas is going to end up being a contingency plan for you in a bunch of different areas, because they can fill in whatever gap happens to appear today. And I know, yeah, I think that is kind of a helpful structure. So somebody calls out, obviously that supervisor manager type person that can fill in, ideal, easy, they're ready to go. If not, that 4 day work week makes a lot of sense in terms of having drivers that are willing to work that extra day if it makes sense, or if you need it. And I think that will probably cover a lot of the gaps, a lot of the times that you do have call outs. But your last tip is really important too. So for those types of people, those retired CDLs, those firefighters, is it job ads that you put out, or is it just, you kind of stumble upon those people? What's the best way to find them?
Well, I mean, I think if it's something that you decide you've got to have and you don't have that connection, whether it's through your own employee base or just, your circle of influence and people that you're there, then it's okay to put that ad out. Hey, looking for a part-time person, you know, on call. I mean, again, tell them what it is right off the bat. But a whole lot of times you can find that just through your contacts and your own team of folks. Some of them may say, "Hey, my dad." It may be somebody says, "My dad would be interested in something like that." So make sure your folks understand that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and it's probably just one that, since it truly is, the plan C, that it's something you just kind of keep your ears and eyes open for, to find that right fit when you can, and you sub them in, and when it's there, it makes sense. It's not something that you always have to have, but they can be great stopgap solutions when you need them.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about it from the beginning. Having a plan is the most important part. How much of this do you find is kind of essential to communicate to employees early on, that of kind of understanding, how early they should let you know that they're going to be out, or what the penalty is if they call out? Like, do you put that in the onboarding? Is there any kind of employee handbook? How do you make sure that your drivers understand what they should be doing there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to have a onboarding process, and part of that is having a handbook and going through it. So I do think it's very important that you set some expectations as it relates to attendance, tardiness, and talk through, what the possible actions could be as you're going through those, just so they know. But I would also say one of the things that's very important that sometimes uh, helps people move forward is the understanding of the impact it gives to their coworkers. Because most people want to be accepted by their coworkers. They don't have to like them, but they want to be accepted by them. And so, when you talk about the impact that does on everybody else that works there and all of that, I have seen that be as an effective tool as anything else. I mean, because at that point, you haven't built the rapport and the respect, it is for a new employee. And so it's good to make sure you point that out specifically outside of the details of the expectations.
Yeah. And those first couple of weeks setting those expectations are so important because ultimately that's going to dictate the culture that they expect and create down the line. And so if you don't set this common standard of the expectations there, how it can hurt the rest of the team when you call out at the last second, and how it hurts the overall company, which should hurt everyone down the line. I think that goes a long ways towards helping them understand the kind of the full cycle there of their actions.
Yeah.
And how often would you say that you actually see call outs in this space? Is it common? Is it rare? Like what based on the employee demographics you see here?
Well, I would say that it's not common. If you do a good job in your recruiting process and your onboarding process, I mean, you should have a feel for that, and it's not common, but it is going to happen. And I wouldn't say it's an every week scenario unless you're in extremely large operations with 30, 40 routes. That's a different story. But in small mid-size operations, it happens occasionally, and a whole lot of times, when you have that rapport and hey, if it's something call it, call in. You need to call by this time the day before, those types of things. But it's still going to happen. Somebody's going to get sick in the middle of the night. I mean,
Yeah, there are
reality.
valid reasons that people can call out. It's not always a bad excuse. There are reasons
Right.
people actually do have. Yeah, perfect. All right, so that's the first scenario. And the one people think of. Now, what's the second one is one that people are also going to think about. So, what do you do if your driver's out on a route and their truck breaks down?
Okay. Yeah, again, it's what's that process? The first thing you need to do is evaluate, is this something that can be fixed, reasonable, in a reasonable time on the side of the road, or is it something that's going to have to either go somewhere or come back to your facility? And so once you assess that, then you go to, okay, have you done your planning? Do you have a mobile mechanic? you
Mhm.
know I would tell you that that is critical in this industry to make sure you do that, because sometimes it may be as much as a flat tire. In this industry, that is not uncommon because of going into the disposal sites. But then if you don't have that, then it is, do you have a good rapport with the wrecker service to be able to get that vehicle and take it to wherever you decide it is, whether you decide you're going to do it or somebody else is going to do it, to get that. And again, most of these trucks are not trucks you can call any wrecker service. So you have to have somebody, not only is it a big truck, but depending on, one of the things they're going to ask is, well, how loaded is it? Because again, these trucks compact the waste. And so a full truck is going to weigh more. They may need to look at things a little different than if it's an empty truck.
Yeah. Well, let's come to the mobile mechanics first. Are those in all areas? Are those easy to find? Anything you'd say there?
Well, I would say almost every place has them, because as you look at over the road, truckers, I mean, they don't have the option of getting it back to a shop. And so, almost all of us have gone down the road before, seen a tractor trailer on the side of the road with a maintenance vehicle there. Well, that's not necessarily their people, and they're not necessarily close to home. So, the big benefit is, for the most part, you're running local. And so it's being able to build those relationships. And, that's a key vendor to set up and build that relationship with, is to understand, hey, here's what we do. Here's the makeup of what we've got. What can you do? Not just a shop, but also that mobile service.
Yeah, and really important to understand, can they repair the type of vehicle that I'm running? Because it's fine if you know somebody that you can call to fix normal vehicles, but these are not normal vehicles, unless, depending on you might be running routes with more normal vehicles, but really this is more of handling your specialized equipment. Now, when we think about normal logistics industries, like when a truck goes down, your first goal is always, depending on the type of package or delivery, whatever they are, you want to find a truck, another kind of truck to come out and take that package, whatever it happens to be, and get it to the right location. When we're talking waste, you're talking about trucks that have compacted this waste and they've got it all, and let's say it's fully loaded. What, if anything, can you do with that is on a truck that is no longer operable? Is there a way to transfer it, or is, what are you doing in those scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of options. The ideal situation, if the hydraulics and everything still work on the truck, is to have the wrecker take it to your disposal site.
Mm.
That's also, again, one of those key relationships that you need to have a good relationship at that disposal site, because they're going to have to do a little extra to help, that scenario. But if you have that relationship, again, it happens and they're accustomed to it. But it is to do that. The other option, worst case scenario, is that you dump it out somewhere and then you have to load it into like a open top, industrial container, and then take it to the landfill. That is the not the ideal situation, and it is a dirty, nasty job if you get to that point. But it has happened before, and since we're talking about contingencies, it has happened before where somebody has put coals or something hot in a truck and you know nothing about it. They dump a container, for whatever reason, there was fire, hot coals, and you get a call from your driver. It says, hey, I think the trash in my bed of my truck's on fire. Well, you're going to tell them at that point, pull over on the side of the road and dump it, because you don't want to damage that investment, because I mean, that'll totally destroy the truck.
Okay,
So
scenario like that, trucks on, garbage is on fire, you tell them to pull over and you dump it. What do you do from there? You're now in a truck that has successfully dumped their flaming trash onto the side of the road. What are the liabilities? What are the things you got to deal with in that scenario?
yeah, most of the time, because it's compacted, it's just smoldering. So it's not like there's flames shooting up and things of that sort. The
Okay.
first thing I do is you contact the local police
Okay.
and make them aware, for them to help set up, you know, help build some caution around that, just for the safety of everybody involved. And so you make them aware, and then sometimes you have to rent some type of bucket loader again, and then you put it in another vehicle. Typically the best thing is like an open top roll off container. If you're in that business, that's a little more simple. If it's not, you find somebody that's in that business, and you rent one long enough for them to do that.
Okay. So sometimes it can make sense if you have some different types of waste services within your own portfolio where you can almost operate as a contingency plan for yourself if you've got the right type of containers that you can dump into as a part of your kind of existing fleet of assets.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
very true. And you see a whole lot of folks get in one or two of the lines of business. They may not start there, but they, if they're entrepreneurial, they typically end up going into another one somewhere because they see the potential.
Got it. Okay. Now, just coming back to one of the things you said earlier here, I'm just now thinking this through of having, you've got large vehicles that are fully loaded. What kind of wrecker can even pull those? Like what do those tow trucks even look like? I'm trying to conceptualize what those even are like.
Well, for lack of a better word, they're big.
Yeah,
I mean, there are, I mean, there are record companies designed for heavy trucks,
okay,
and so you see them out there. I mean, it's basically the same type of truck you would see pull a school bus or things of that sort. So it's not that you know there's nobody there to be able to do it. It's just making sure you have that relationship with the right one who has that type of equipment available.
got it. Okay, so that is critical that if you've got those large types of equipment, that's one of the first vendors you need to make sure you have any kind of account with, because there's going to inevitably be some time where you need a tow. And if you're scrambling at that moment when you've got a driver on the side of the road and you're trying to find them, it's going to be a lot more difficult than if you've already established that relationship.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about this last scenario here. So, depending on what part of the country you are, you might have snow, you might have a hurricane, you might have a tornado. In those types of scenarios, depending on the inclement weather, how do you decide when or if you dispatch your vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, so each one of those scenarios is very different, right? If you are, if you're in a coastal area, you have two obligations primarily. One is to your company to make sure you protect the assets. The second is to your people. If it is something of that sort, you're going to shut down just like everybody else does to allow your people to get out of the area and be safe. Also, with that, what you may do is find a way for them to help you in that process to get your equipment, specifically trucks, things of that sort, out of that area. So you kill two birds with one stone. So in hurricane situations, I mean, that's a whole lot of what you want to do. Again, everybody else there is leaving for the most part, except for what I would call crazy people who want to ride out the storm.
Mhm.
Uh, they're leaving too, so there's not waste being generated. People understand that. The big thing on that, as far as a contingency plan, is to make sure you've got good contact information for your people to know when they're coming back. I mean, I've had scenarios before where I've actually had to buy RVs because it was totally wiped out. Katrina is an example where we had to actually get RVs and put them down there because the people could come back, but they had no place to stay. There weren't hotels, there weren't other things. So, I mean, in those types of scenarios, again, that one's very unique and very different, but you have to understand they're dealing with a lot of the same things that you're dealing with. And so it's typically most people aren't upset about their waste. That's one of the least of their concerns. They may hope it all blows away. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
th- things of that sort. Um, from a weather situation, rain, a flooding situation, a snow situation. Um, again, it is very possible that you can run part of your route and not run the entirety of the route. Um, and again, in that, if it's say residential, for example, the main roads may be clear, but the neighborhood streets may be terrible.
Yeah.
Living in Middle Tennessee, that's very common. They,
Oh yeah,
they,
in the last snowstorm, the if you were two roads away from my house, it was clear for a week. I couldn't leave for a week because I had about 3 inches of ice and nobody was getting over to my road anytime. So I am also intimately aware of of some of those roads in Middle Tennessee. But yeah, I can imagine that happens in a lot of places.
yeah, and so again, you want to your obligation is to protect your assets and your people. And so it's not one of those are tough decisions, but it's not one of those that you want to put your people and your company at risk for the sake of service. You guys that have been on here have heard me say, service is critical in this industry, and it is. But that's something you just can't cross that line, service above people at any time.
Yeah. Now, let's say you have a municipal contract with the city and you're servicing all the houses in that city. Let's say it's been a snow week And is there at any point that they can force you to go out and pick up, or is it still in kind of your control and decision?
Well, in most of these, they're dealing with things because most of the people are calling them complaining about there still being ice on their street.
Yeah.
So they understand that. The key to that is communicate in advance. I mean, so if you know you're going to make a decision this after, snow comes, it's there, it's going to get down, it's going to get down to, the teens that night, it's not going to change. Let them know today that tomorrow you're not going to run. Uh, that is probably the biggest part of that. And then also with that, here's my plan. So, when it's an extended period of time, it's here, not you can't run for 3 or 4 days because it's just you can't get the trucks out on the street. Most of the time they understand that. Some people will get upset, but that's why not only do you let whoever your primary contact is, but it's also good to know in advance who is the council person in the area you're running, so you can give them a heads up as well. And that way they, if they happen to get calls about that, they can help you out, and they're more than willing to help in those situations. But those agreements have a cure period, and they also have an acts of God clause in there as well. So I mean, it's they want it as quick as you can, but as you walk through, protecting your people, it's hard for them to argue about that when it is legitimate issue in that regard.
Okay. Now, how would that conversation go if, let's say, you had a truck that's down, you couldn't get a rental, and so you're missing a couple of days? Are they still as lenient? Is it still as easy as of a conversation with the city?
No, it's just not, because
Yeah.
they're going to want to know, why didn't you prepare for this in advance?
Yeah.
Why didn't you have a spare? Why didn't you have something set up where you could get a rental in, prior to that time? Again, rentals are not easy in this industry. They're there. And so, but that's something, again, good to know. Where are your options? A whole lot of times it may be in a totally different geographic area where that's available. And
Mhm.
so it's not as good a decision, because they want to know why you didn't plan in advance for this type of scenario to happen. But if you can walk through, here's what I've done, here's what I'm doing, my truck's going to be ready tomorrow, I'll get it called up, we're going to, we'll push everything back a day. Again, that communication and your plan of action to recover is critical.
Okay. Perfect. All right. I think that's kind of all of the scenarios I wanted to talk through. I think at the end of the day, what you said at the beginning is still worth coming back to at the end, which is that having a plan is the most important thing. And I've even seen people write out these contingency plans, and that might even help you have that for, if you have a municipal contract, showing them, hey, I've got this written plan, here are the steps. But even if it's not for anyone else other than you, having a plan and thinking through 2, 3 layers of backups and how you would handle these different scenarios means that you've already done the hard work. And so that once a problem happens, you're just executing a plan. You're not scrambling, trying to think of a solution. Because that's when it gets really crazy, is when something breaks, you weren't expecting it, and now you're just calling people, trying to find a spare at the last second, or trying to find a driver at the last second. So as much of this as you can do in advance and think through, the better off you'll be. And whether it's vendors or thinking through the right way to structure this plan, we're always happy to help you think through that and develop that plan. So if anyone has any questions, you can type them in. You'll have about 30 seconds while I go through this last part here. Now, a heads up for everybody: if you are thinking of going to the Waste Expo out in Vegas, I think it's the second week of May, Tommy will be there with some people from our team. So it's a good opportunity to meet him if you're already planning on going out there. It's a big show, and it'll be a lot of fun. Other than that, we do have a couple of ways that you can continue to learn and work with us. We do have a Waste 101 that's live on our site, free to do kind of a quick 101 course. We also now have a new investor summit for waste. And so if you are trying to figure out if it's the right step for you to get into this industry, that is basically like a combination of a 201 digital course and an in-person workshop that we have at our office here in Nashville. And we have those throughout the year, but the digital course is on demand, and then you can sign up for whatever the next workshop will be. We actually have our next one on March 28th, 2 weeks from today. So if you are trying to go to that one, we do still have a couple of spots. Other than that, we have all of those on our website. But like I said, it's designed as let's learn about the space online and then come in person, clear up any questions you may have about the space, and learn from Tommy directly, from our team directly, so that you can really have confidence to move forward. Now, the last thing I'll say is just if you are already in the space or trying to find ways to, set up your own business or work more efficiently as you get set up, there are ways that you can work directly with Tommy on a mentorship basis. So if you have questions on any of that, reach out directly to our team, info@routeconsultant.com. We can help you find that next step. Other than that, we're going to be here every week. And so, Tommy, thank you so much for being on these webinars and always sharing your expertise.
Thanks. Have a good rest of your day.
Yep. And thanks everybody for being here. Like I said, we'll see you next week. All right. Bye.